Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today I thought we'd talk about The Undiscovered Country, Volume 1. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent, and today we're going to be reviewing Undiscovered Country, Volume 1. This is from Image Comics, from Charles Soule, Scott Snyder, and Giuseppe Camuncoli. I always thought it was Camuncoli, but Camuncoli, and a bunch of other people. So this is a new-ish series. I think this is Volume 1, and there's maybe 3 volumes out in terms of trade paperbacks, which means they're probably on issue 17 or 20 by the time this review comes out. So I picked this up. Wanted to try something new, and as always, as most Image first volumes of trade paperbacks, it is only $10, so that is a plus. I'm a fan of everybody involved here. Charles Soule is a great writer, big fan of Scott Snyder, and Giuseppe Camuncoli is one of the artists that I wish would just break out the way that Greg Capullo is breaking out. Him and Carmine Di Giamenico are two, I don't know if they're Italian artists or whatever, but they definitely have Italian-sounding names, so we'll just... But they're two artists that have a similar style that I love, and anytime I read their work, I really, really enjoy it. They just have this energetic, cartoony style that I adore. So if this is how Camuncoli is going to break out by doing Undiscovered Country, then... all the power to him if he's doing all the work. He did all the work in this first volume, which is the first, I believe it's 6 issues, yeah. And it was kind of interesting. Am I going to pick up the rest of them, though? Am I hooked? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not really there yet. There's certainly an interesting hook here, which is not, it's kind of evident with the cover treatment here, where you have the United States of America missing. Nothing to speak of my homeland of Florida down here. It's probably cut off. But basically the hook for this story is the United States of America has been missing for 30 years. Missing in terms of, we know it's still there, but they built a bunch of walls and closed the doors and issued no transmissions, didn't let anybody in or out. They call it the Great Sealing. And the rest of the world's kind of gone nuts ever since then. They talked about World War V, which means, starting World War V, which means there was a World War III and a World War IV. And in fact, the rest of the world seems to be separated into 2 major alliances. One aligned with Europe and one aligned with, they call it the Pan-Asian Alliance. So I'm assuming that's Russia, China, and all of the countries in Asia, maybe Australia down there as well. They don't really spell it out in this first volume. But that's not quite what the story is about. They're gathering a whole bunch of people from across the world to go into the United States of America because there's a pandemic going on. I think it's called dust, that they call it, and they're looking for a cure for it. And apparently they got a message from America saying, come over here, we have the cure, from someone who looks really like Uncle Sam, the mythological American person, right? And that we have the cure, and if you come over, we'll give it to you and negotiate from there, kind of thing, the re-entry of America. That's a great hook for a first issue. The problem, I think, is that you have this kind of pseudo-realistic future and, a great hook, and you're going in there, and as soon as you land in America, it's a weird fucking sci-fi tale. And I think that was, for me, like the turn-off point. Not to say that the writing is bad or the art is bad, but there are a lot of characters here in terms of the group that goes there. Not really one of them has a big breakout or seems like the main character. You get, issues focusing on the doctor, who's an expert in American culture up until the Great Sealing. You have the brother and sister team, one who was a former mercenary and the other one is a doctor. You have a politician from each of the alliances, as well as a military guy. Like, they all have, their little moments. Some get more issues about their backstory than others. Maybe in further volumes we'll get backstories about the politicians or about the military guy. But it all seems to kind of fall apart here once you get to America. And by the time you discover that there's some weird squid aliens and giant whales and some big guy in a robot suit called Mr. Mr. Destiny, or the Destiny Man, with these glowing horns and stuff. It just turns into this weird sci-fi tale and kind of loses all that futuristic realism that hooked you in that first issue. So I think that's where it falls apart. Like this guy right here, this is the Destiny Man. That's the backside of him. He looks like a guy in a spacesuit wearing an old diving helmet with some glowing horns, of which he has many of them, and he just attaches. Like he's got a whole set, you know. He's got one from this animal, one from that animal, a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe they're radioactive or something, I don't know. But most of this first volume is about this group trying to find the door into the next portion of America. You see, they're trying to walk the Great Spiral, which is here on the map. I'm not sure if you can see it very well. But basically, there's some weird spiral, American flag-colored kind of road that takes you to the center of America, and that's where our end goal is in terms of making America great again, so to speak. It has nothing to do with the dust thing that they talked about. It was all just a ruse to get these people here to do something which hasn't been laid out yet, right? So I guess it's going to be a finite series, and if it goes all the way, then fantastic, but they don't really give you the idea of what seems to me that each volume will be, like trade paperback, will be a new section of America you will get to explore. It doesn't seem to be there's many things that have been figured out about the rest of the Americas quite yet. Like, you know, when you're reading the Hunger Games or watching them, you had District 12 that you're a part of, but you got to know quickly in that first movie what District 1 does, what District 2 does, 3, 4, like they kind of give you the layout of what all the districts in the Hunger Games universe do, and why 12 is such a bad place to be, and why they're never the favorites for the winners of the Hunger Games, because they're just this coal mining district, very poor, that kind of thing. In Undiscovered Country, you start out on the edge of this spiral road, and you're just kind of like, hey, this is the American West, and it's the desert. Assume it's like Utah, like desert Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, that kind of thing in terms of the landscape. And you learn nothing about the other sections of America in this book. So there's no real hook to be like, oh, well, that's cool, that's cool, that's cool. And the fact that, like, this stands next to things like Old Man Logan, where you have the same desert iconography and things like that, and this post-nuclear war wasteland of the Marvel Universe that has a lot of hooks in there in terms of what the characters look like and stuff. Like, this kind of falls flat in response to those similar type of books, right? So it's not to say that the writing is bad or the art is bad. It's just the hook in the first issue was very like futuristic. Like I could see this happening in some other world. Maybe if Trump won again in 2020, or if he wins again in 2024, who the hell knows? And everybody kind of loses their minds in some great American fervor. I could kind of see this happening, but what would the rest of the world look like? That's an interesting idea. Turning it into some weird sci-fi thing where you have a lot of Mad Max, Fury Road influences in the art and designs of the characters and creatures and buildings. Like there's a rolling city here, which I feel like there was a Peter Jackson movie a few years ago based on a book that had that same kind of thing. Or hell, the Batman Ninja animated movie had the same thing where the cities were rolling and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that seem very borrowed, and nothing seems very original other than this kind of America cut up into pieces and you don't know what each one looks like. So I think that's kind of where the book falls apart for me, since there was no hook into the further ongoing story past the great hook in issue 1. I don't know that I will be continuing with Undiscovered Country volume 2, 3, 4, whatever. It's not like Fables that's got me by the horns right now rereading that series. So that's basically your primer on Undiscovered Country. If you think that's a great idea, if you're interested in some wild, wacky, futuristic, radioactive sci-fi book about America, then you might like this book a whole lot more than I did. Just ignore issue 1 and jump in on issue 2, and you'll probably be hooked going from there. Because the stuff that hooked me from issue 1 apparently is not the main thrust of the book. So there you have it. Great writers, great art, but a hook that ultimately didn't work for me. And that's okay. Not everybody has to like everything, but you might like it. So if what I described sounds interesting to you, go check out Undiscovered Country. If you were like me and you're interested in the hook from issue 1, then read issue 1 and just leave it alone at that. So there you have it. Thanks for watching down, and let me know what you think down below in the comments, and we'll see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.